In this video, we will create our own Collagraph plate. To do this, you are going to need heavy-duty scissors, such as the Betty Crocker ones that I talk about within this video, school glue, our homemade paper from last week, a dark marker like a Sharpie, your chosen sketch that you already created, a number of different types of recyclables that have different surfaces and textures, and 2 pieces of thick cardboard. You need these to be about the same size.
Okay, I have got my sketches done. I've looked at them, I've looked at the supplies that I have, and I have decided to choose the Sun Tea sketch over my cold pizza option, just because I like the detail in this better, and I like that I am able to use more recyclables in this piece than I would in this piece. So I'm going to actually just fold this back so I can only see one image, because I only need to look at my idea 2 right now for this piece. I'm going to set that up here so I can look at it throughout my creation of my Collagraph print base. I have my Collagraph print base here. Now, I said it needs to be a little bit smaller than our piece of paper. So if I have my piece of paper here, before I even get started, I'm going to just set that on top and see if it fits. If you look, my board of cardboard is a little bit smaller than my piece of paper. That is what I want. That's because if I make it the same exact size and I accidentally put something really close to the edge, when I go to print it, it might either not come out as I expect it, or because our paper edges are very rough, it could also tear the edges of our paper because they're not super crisp, okay? So it's good to have a little bit excess. So I have my base. The next thing that I need to do, this is probably the most important part of Collagraph printmaking, is I need to make the outline of my piece in cardboard. So remember, the outline, the silhouette of our piece would be this line without any of the detail. So I have my glass jar right here. That is what I need to outline. So I'm going to take another piece of thicker cardboard. It's the same type of cardboard. And I'm going to sketch out my glass jug. So I'm going to sketch it out, and I like to use a Sharpie because it lets me see the lines a little bit better when I'm cutting it. But you can always just use a pencil in case you need to redraw it again. You can just erase it, and then you can go over it with a Sharpie. It's a good idea to make sure that this cardboard size and this cardboard size are the same size. That way, when you're drawing your outline of your shape, you don't accidentally draw it way too big. So if you see, I have my glass jar on there. It takes up pretty much the whole piece of cardboard. That's what we want. If we make it super, super small, we can't add any detail to it. If we make it huge, it's not going to fit on our base, which means it's not going to fit on our paper, okay? So make sure when you're drawing it that it takes up most of this cardboard piece that is the same size as your plate's base. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out the outline of my jug. I'm going to use scissors for this. These scissors are excellent for cutting cardboard. They are just Betty Crocker scissors, actually. They're meant for cooking. I bought these just at the Dollar Tree. The reason I suggest these for cardboard is because they're a little bit more heavy duty than regular scissors, so they cut through cardboard super, super well. That being said, they are a little sharper and they do have little jagged edges on them. So if you use a pair of scissors like this that's a little bit more heavy duty, you really need to be careful. Make sure your hands are never where the blades are, that they always stay back here. And if you're not comfortable using a type of scissor like this, or you're having a hard time cutting it, ask a parent or guardian for help, okay? So I'm going to cut my silhouette out, and you'll see how easy these scissors just glide through my thick cardboard. Jar all ready to go. Now I am just going to glue this directly on here. When I go to glue it on here, I need to make sure that it is where I would like it. Once I glue this down, all my layers are going to go on this piece, which means if I end up don't liking where it's placed when I start adding my details, I'm going to have to start all over because this is already glued on here. Also, make sure that it is on your piece. I like to try and put mine in the middle as much as possible just because it makes it easier for printmaking. If you notice your piece is off like this, or it's really not on your plate, reposition it. If it comes off your plate's base, it's not going to be on your piece of paper when we go to print it. Okay, so I like it right there. I am just using school glue to glue this down. So I'm just rubbing that down just to make sure that the glue is bonding these two pieces of cardboard together. And if I can pick it up and it doesn't fall, then I know it's on there nice and secure. Okay, so I have my silhouette of my sun tea bottle down. The next thing I'm going to look at is my sketch. I need to look for what's going to be on the bottom layer. So if I look at my sketch, two things are going to be on my bottom layer. They're just going to be in different parts. The water that I have is going to be on my bottom layer and the lid. So I need to add those first. Remember I said my plastic bag that I have is going to be my water. If I want to mark where I want my water to stop on here, for me to reference just with a black marker, I can. We won't see that whenever we print make. Just gonna cut it into different sections. So I'm gonna start with my edges, hold that down. I'm just going to set this down where I like it. Now obviously that goes way past my line. So I'm just gonna take my scissors again and go around my edges. Okay, so that's what it looks like right now. You can see that some of it came off of my intended shape. I can just fold that and glue that on. Also right here, it's not really a nice crisp line. If I like that, I can keep it. If I don't, I can roll up a plastic bag like this and glue it over that top so I have a nice crisp edge. So that's what I'm going to do. Cut any extra off that you don't want. And now I have that ready to go. For the lid of my sun tea container, I'm actually going to use this old container that I had strawberries in it. Plastic is a little awkward and sometimes it's hard to cut, so don't hesitate to ask for help when cutting plastic. One thing that I want to note, if you look, this side is round, this side kind of caves in like a valley. With pieces like this, if I put the side up that has the valley, when I go to print make, I have to make sure my paper gets in that small crack, which sometimes can be a little tricky. So I would suggest making sure that when you add pieces on like this, that if there is a round edge, make sure that's the side that's sticking up. It's going to be a lot easier when we print make these. So I'm going to go ahead and glue all these on, once again, just using my school glue. So I only actually had to use one piece for my lid. And I want that gap between here so my audience knows where my water stops and where the lid starts. Okay. Now I can go ahead and move on to the more detailed portions of my sketch. So lid, check. Plastic bag for our water, check. next thing I need to do is make my tea bags, which I decided to make out of bubble wrap. When I am cutting out details, in this case like my tea bag squares, I need to make sure that they're going to all work in this one space. You don't want them to be too big that they're close to each other. Remember, if I have pieces super close to each other, we're going to lose that detail. So for instance, just to show you, if I put one here and I put the other one right here and there's only a little tiny gap, it's not going to pick up on that gap. It's going to look like one giant piece. But if I put one here and I move the other one up here, that nice gap in between is really going to show that these in fact are two different tea bags. So before I even glue them down, I'm going to place them on here just to make sure they are far enough apart, they're all the right size and shape for what I'm using them for, and they're where I want them. Remember, before I glue them down, I want to make sure where they are. And I am going to put glue on the back of them. Okay, I'll zoom in so you can see this. I have my 3 tea bags all ready to go. I don't have any more room for them. If I wanted to add more than 3, I could have made them smaller, but I like how they are. So I made sure that they're on really well. You can tell if something's on really well if you pick it up and nothing falls off. Okay, you definitely want to lay it flat while you are working, but that's a good way to test if you have something glued on really well. So our next step is I have my tea bags. I need to do my strings. And I'm actually just using some string that I have. It'll work out really good. So I'm going to go ahead and cut 3 of those and make sure I have the lengths down. When I go to glue something down like string that's very thin, and if I put a layer of glue on here, my hands are going to get super messy, and it's also going to be really hard to attach it to my plate without it sticking to my fingers. So I like to add a line of glue, a solid line of glue of where I want it. If I want to add a wave to it or anything like that, I'll add it now. And then I will start where my line starts of glue, and I'll just lay that down, and it'll just stick to the glue. I might get a little glue on my hands, but it won't be as messy. So here are my strings attached, all nice. So now I'm going to go back to my sketch. This process you really need a sketch for to keep referring back to it so you don't forget anything. If you want to with your sketch, you could also write layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 5, and so on. That way you know how to layer your piece. Okay, so I'm just going to go through it. Do I have a lid? Yep. Do I have a space between here? Yes. Did I put my plastic bag on? Yep. Bubble wrap? Yep. String? Yes. Is there anything else that I forgot to add? Right now it doesn't look like it. So my Collagraph plate, my printing plate, is complete. Now if we go to print this today on our nice paper, what will probably happen is something is going to pop off of here because we just glued a whole bunch of plastic and yarn and cardboard to this piece. And if I don't allow it enough time to dry, everything will pop off, and I'm going to have to either glue it on again and again, or it can pop off when we print. And when we print, if stuff pops off, it can be fixed, but it's a little difficult because you're trying to glue stuff on that has paint on it already, and stuff just gets a little messy. So what I would like you to do until next week is let this dry for a whole week. Okay? Put your paper in a safe place for a whole week. Put your Collagraph plate in a place that is safe for a whole week. So next week, I will finally get to show you how to print this beautiful image that you created of your culture onto our unique homemade paper.
So here is a breakdown of all the steps that it took for me to create my Collagraph plate. Notice that my first step was looking at my sketch and choosing which one I wanted to create. My plate ended up having 5 layers on it. I don't suggest putting more than 6 layers on it. Also remember, you need to review your sketch as you're creating your plate. This is going to be super helpful.